District, Tim Walberg. Hi, Tim.
Mark, great to be with you.
Welcome back.
Been a lot of years we've been talking about this.
Many years. In fact, you are serving your 8th term, and you are the dean of Michigan's congressional delegation.
Yeah, that, and I'm having that pay for being a dean this past term doubled this next time.
Well, we'll see. I think
zero upon zero
you get
makes
the
zero.
same money. You get the same money.
We have a great delegation, though, the delegation from Michigan. And I would say overwhelming majority Republican and Democrat are good people. We get along well together. Certainly we don't agree on everything, but my Republican delegation, it's a solid group of conservatives, and to work well together, and we hope to have us all back, plus pick up 2 more.
Well, I think one thing that is correct is the Republican Congress members are all conservative, but you actually call yourself, and I think it's on your website, Michigan's most conservative congressman.
Lifetime rating, we still have it, and the beauty of it is that there are several others trying to catch up. That keeps us moving forward.
So you are obviously campaigning for re-election, but it's a district that traditionally has been heavily Republican. So I don't see that there's a lot of evidence that you're campaigning for re-election. Yeah, a few signs are up, but that's really not a lot.
Well, the beauty of it is my opponent has said that she's concerned that Walberg seems to be doing something strange in campaign. He's coming to these small communities all over the district. Well, I think that is part of the process of being a legislator who represents the district, that you ought to be not simply in the large spots in the district, though Jackson, Monroe, certainly we're going to be there, but the smaller communities as well need to know that their member of Congress knows, number one, where they're at, how to get there, and is willing to sit down and talk with them. So that's what we've been doing. I think that's the best campaigning. It's really what you're supposed to do. So we feel good about the election. It's always good, I guess, to have a challenger because it keeps you on your toes, but it's nice not to be in a targeted seat like I was for so many years.
So as running as a strong conservative, what in your record, what are the accomplishments, what do you look back on, particularly in the last 2 years that you would say you're running on?
Well, I sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee, so that's given me a real opportunity to get on some high-profile issues related to those issues. And the Energy and Commerce Committee is the oldest standing committee in Congress. It has the largest purview of any committee, and it took me 3 tries to get on that committee. So I'm delighted to be there. But for instance, just last week before we came home, a piece of legislation that I had worked on for a number of years, in a bipartisan way. Kathy Castor from Florida, a Democrat from Florida, and I had worked on it, protecting kids on the issue of not being pushed by outside sources to do things in their life that they might live to regret. And parents ought to be notified if they are wanting to make changes. That could include everything from pronouns to their names. Their sex changes and all of that. This legislation did pass in a bipartisan way out of the Energy and Commerce Committee. That's a good step. The CARS Act was another bill that passed that I'm very proud of. That simply said, a lot like Donald Trump has said, I'm not opposed to EVs. Electric vehicles are good vehicles if they work for you. And my bill, the CARS Act, said that government can't mandate what type of car you drive. Seems common sense, but that's not what has been happening. John James, my colleague, had a companion bill that indicated that EVs could not, the tailpipe standard, which ultimately mandates EVs, because the tailpipe standard that EPA is putting out, you can't meet it if you have a tailpipe. So that means it has to be EVs. So when you hear Vice President Harris say that we've given no mandate on EVs, well, yes, we have. And by 2030, the level that comes out of a tailpipe will not meet the standards if that's allowed to continue. So both John James and myself have taken action on that. Fortunately, both of our bills have passed the House. The Senate sadly hasn't taken them up yet, but those are good bills that speak to the needs of my district, especially when you have the number of auto workers in my district or auto worker supplier plants that are in my district. The tremendous loss of jobs that will come when we're not ready for it yet. We don't have the means to charge these vehicles in a sufficient way. And in fact, they haven't been perfected to the point that it works for most of us in Michigan, unless it's a third car that we want to have in the stable. It does not enable us to head up north if that's where we want to go, pull a camping trailer or a boat behind it, and have any opportunity. So those are issues we're working on. I'm glad we're part of it.
Immigration, the Middle East, those are two of the biggest issues right now, and I think throughout the campaign for president, immigration has been number one. It sounds like from both.
Well, the economy is number one.
Inflation's
eating up, but right behind it is the border and border security.
So there was an opportunity in the Senate and the House this past summer to pass some sort of a stronger immigration.
No, it was an inferior bill. We passed H.R. 2 twice, Senate to the Senate. H.R. 2 was basically the Trump border plan, which worked. I mean, we shut the border down for the most part. Fentanyl stopped coming to Jackson County, and you talk to Mike Hurst, for instance, about it, who has been heavily involved with Andy's Place and the rest. We saw significant market improvement in the amount of opiates and fentanyl coming here to Jackson, Michigan. Once that border was opened again, by the border czar, arguably, who didn't go to the border until last week and stayed 20 minutes there, it expanded, and the human suffering that went on and the insecurity. And then this weekend we see the reports coming out from a request coming from one of our Republican colleagues from Texas, showing the actual numbers of the number of people, illegal immigrants coming across who have been put back out on the street waiting their adjudication. Now we found out that they are convicted criminals, and 300,000 of them are convicted sex criminals. So you have that going on there. So this bill that Vice President Harris continues to talk about was a bill that would let more people into the country illegally than were going in themselves beforehand. So we turned that bill down. Now she says it was Trump that got it stopped. No, it wasn't. The Senate didn't get it out, never came to the House, and so we didn't have a chance, but we sent a better bill twice to them.
It's two separate issues. With fentanyl, you mentioned 90% of fentanyl coming in to the United States from Mexico is driven in by Americans smuggling in the backs of their cars somehow through San Diego. The immigration people from Latin America coming in, two separate issues, two different fixes, or are we looking at, is it one giant issue?
Same border issue. And regardless of whether it's coming in on the backs of an illegal immigrant or an American citizen who's driving it, under the Trump border policy, the border was secure. We let the Customs and Border Patrol agents do the job that they were trained to do. Since that, in the past 4 years, and I think that's why the Customs and Border Patrol agents have endorsed President Trump for re-election. They have been put on domestic duty, as they would call it now. They're caring for kids, they're putting diapers on, they're dealing with sickness, they're watching all sorts of things other than the border. When I was down early on in Trump's tenure in office, we had massive influx of people coming in. He called for putting up the border wall. That started. We put electronic surveillance on. We gave Customs and Border agents the ability to do the job that they were trained to do. It has shut it down. And that's why I say if Vice President Harris had just simply done nothing and left the Trump policy in place, including the border wall that the steel was all there to complete it, we wouldn't have had the problem that we have now.
Let's talk about the Middle East.
Okay.
Sunday, I saw some of the morning news shows talk about what's next in terms of Israel and Gaza, and a lot of the, both Republican and Democrats said, oh, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. What's your view of what the future is in the Middle East, and what should the United States be doing?
Well, Israel has to win this one. It was started by Hamas, a brutal attack, inhuman attack that went on October 7th. And it's been fighting ever since. And sadly, we have been a bit double-minded on our support for Israel as a country, talking about ceasefires. When a war has begun like this to achieve victory over a terrorist organization like Hamas, you finish it as quickly as possible. I was attacked for saying that. To finish it, get it done.
Well, you used some pretty extreme.
Well, if I had, a chance to do it over again, you know how it is when you're speaking. Sometimes you speak to an audience, which I was speaking to, of older citizens who understood that comparison. Maybe I should have said the Gulf War or something like that. But the issue was getting it done over and quickly. Had we encouraged and stood behind Israel to do that, we may not have had this Lebanon situation going on now. We certainly would have said to Iran, as an evil actor behind all of this, that we are going to stomp it out. And those people in Gaza, the Palestinians, you can have freedom to return home again if Hamas is gone. I think that's the point right now. Israel's saying, hey, you've wanted to hold us back, you want ceasefires, but all that's done is allowed these terrorists to continue moving around. And you think of those hostages, including still some Americans held hostage. To expect that they're going to even be found alive now is almost impossible to believe. How tragic that is, when in fact, if we would have allowed and encouraged Israel and stood with them to stand firmly to stomp out Hamas immediately, Hezbollah might not have been intersecting itself right at this point in time.
All right, you're in Jackson doing the work of a congressman, but you're also on a campaign swing in Michigan this week. What have you been up to today?
Well, today we had a chance to meet with Jackson County Sheriff, see what's going on there.
Can you get him more money?
I tell you what, he's asking simply for, well, not even a full renewal of the millage that's necessary to assist with his staffing. This isn't a building. I've been in that jail, and it's in need of a lot. It's a tough place, but to have the cops on the street that protect us, that's an important thing. So I hope Jackson County residents take a look at it carefully, see what he's actually asking for. From what I was told by Gary, he simply wants to have enough people to be on the road, to be in the schools as resource officers, and the schools want them. It's a time when we need these deputies out doing the job that they need to do. Then facilities, that'll be something else. I know that bond proposal was turned down. But let's make sure we respect and keep the police on the beat. And I know the sheriff is attempting to do that. Then I had an opportunity to go over to Lumen Christi and speak to the principal there. They're doing a great work. They've got a tough football game coming up this week against Toledo St. Francis, so we wish them well on that. Education is such an important thing. I sit on the Education Committee as well in Congress. Have a great interest in that. And to have good schools like Lumen Christi and other public schools that are charting the course and trying to educate our young people for the future is so important. So those are some of the things we're involved with. I was with the Trump bus tour. Governor Burgum from North Dakota was here, Mike Rogers and myself in Jackson, birthplace of the Republican Party, 1854, July 6th under the Oaks. And so we had a chance to pump up the crowd, encourage them to get out, get people to vote. And in this state now, you can vote early. And as I say, you can vote often by getting other people to follow you to the voting place and getting the agenda out that you want to see.
All right, thanks for taking time to stop in today.
Thanks for having me.
Campaigning for re-election, our Congressman, Tim Walberg.